Hello sketchers! So this is lesson 1 of my Portrait for Beginner course. So here I will break down my technique and show you the different ways I sketch and paint the human face. I specifically chose this Maasai warrior woman from my travel sketchbook because I believe the best start for a beginner is not a smooth young face, but one that is well worn, full of character, and you can see the different planes on the surface much better on a very interesting face like this. Alright, let's start. So first, once I have an image I like, I usually go back to Pinterest and try to look for similar images. And by doing this, I start noticing what is interesting and what is very iconic about that image that I want to draw. These are the supplies that I'm using in this video. You don't need the exact one, just use what you already have. So first step is to create the egg shape, which is the basic shape of this head. Notice how I hold my pencil quite far to the back of the pencil to be loose. You just want to be really loose with this. It doesn't have to be exact. Next, I divide this egg into equal parts, vertically and horizontally, like this. And then graying out the eye socket area, just in an oblong space, like this. And then halfway down is where I put the nose in a sort of a rough line, and then another half down is where the lips are. So now that I've done the eyes and the nose, I can place where the ear is, which is parallel between the eyes and the nose. And let's appreciate the size of this ear and the earring she's got on. So next I place the neck, and I sometimes use a ruler to vertically place where the neck is. So this is a handy way to find that. And notice the way I do measurements is just by putting my pencil and making these rough lines. And marking where the positions are of the top of the ear to the forehead, and etc. And now I am redefining the head shape a little bit and observing the squareness of her jaw and sort of simplifying the curves of the chin and the nose creases. So lightly start to redefine the placement. Here I'm adding the eyebrow. You see me do it really lightly. And then I start to redefine the ears as well. So notice that I also always try to check the distance between the mouth and the nose and the ears. So, and always use simplified shapes, like this for the lips, for example. So measuring out straight lines and to see what's there. Right here is where the eyes are, which is basically parallel to the top of the ears. And then measuring the distance between the eyes and the nostril, the tip of the nostril. And you can lightly draw a line like that. And define the shape of the curves of this nose. So at the tip of the nose, here there's a ball. It's a very, very lightly drawn here. And I'm beginning to kind of clean up a little bit as well, just so the ball is very obvious now. So this is the most protruding part of the nose, and how it softly leads to the eyebrow bone. And using my finger, I just sort of smooth and smudge the pencil a little bit. Next, I kind of put a little bit more definition around the neck and back to the lips a little bit. So now I've decided I'm going to give this whole face a whole other shade, and also adding quite a little bit of darkness into the areas that you can see is quite dark. And then with the putty eraser, I started to slowly take out some of those highlights, mostly in the nose area, because it is the most protruding part. And notice when I do this, and then I started adding more darkness into the features, the face is becoming slightly more three-dimensional. So I started adding darkness into the areas that needed it. I also used the putty eraser to take out quite a lot of those planes that are lighter. So not using my eraser to erase mistakes. So now let's paint. This is my underpainting. I use Cobalt Turquoise and I water it down to a weak tea consistency. Notice where I place this underpainting. It's tracing mostly the shadow area of the face to begin with. Why I do this is to create a sort of base color, like a very light tinge, you can call it, of blue can be seen in her face. And then watering it down even more while these blues are still wet, and just with this sort of clean brush, I just spread most of that blue around to cover most of her face. Here I just added a bit more consistent color to the dark lips area and a bit around the chin. So you want to make sure this underpainting is still wet when you move back in with the flesh tone. Okay, now mix a really generous bottle of the flesh tone. That's basically the yellow, the red, and raw sienna mixed together. Play around with how much of each you're going to use. So for her skin, she's obviously quite dark, quite chocolate brown, so you can mix that. So the method I'm doing here is a very slow paint a little bit and see method. You see me, I'm not generously putting the skin everywhere. This method is basically every little bit that I paint on created the picture slightly better, and then I just stop and observe. Does that work? Oh, that works. Do I need to put more here? Do I need to put more there? So you see me stop and think, and here I decided I'm gonna add a bit more water to that skin mix, the flesh mix, and do it that way. So this is part of the practice of figuring out the face as you go along. There's no science to this, so this is how I play, basically. My technique is usually put down a bit first, see how it goes, and then add a bit more water to lighten things and to soften the edges, and then add a bit more paint, and then I repeat that in different parts of her face, observing my reference. Sometimes I put down a wet surface before I added the color. I really like the wet on wet method for this because it kind of softens a lot of your lines. So you see me adding bits and pieces here and there. I kind of want to avoid the nose area from having too much paint. But maybe I could make that smaller. Yeah, I think that's better. And now I'm gonna go back in with slightly darker of that flesh tone, and decided to put it on her hair as well. And then I decided, hey, let's just add a little more value with that same mix. because the initial mix would have dried lighter. So same method, paint a little bit and see. That's it. I think I'm going to stop there. Okay, so next I'm going to show you a different approach using a grayscale image and a compass, using the compass as a ruler to measure out the top and the bottom of this face. So this is for more exact measurements, and then using the pencil gray out again. I also measure using the compass the distance between the features, the top of the ears, the nose, and the mouth and stuff. So I buff out the pencil, so this is the base tone, and then slowly adding a little more dark to the different parts of the face this way. And then when I use the putty eraser, take out the highlights like I did before, because the base tone is darker, it pops out. I love this method. Then you go back and forth, taking away, adding more dark areas, and back and forth like that. Isn't that great? And then I use a gray, very weak gray color, just to add one shade or one tone to the face. And then a second one, very lightly. So this is the actual color that I use. And then I decided the background, and with the pen, I would pop the face out just a little bit more. Added before black. I added into basically the most dark areas of the face, just to define it a little bit, and adding the earrings. Now back to color. Underpainting of blue goes down, quite weak. And then of course the details, just a little bit. And then the flesh tone goes on top of that blue color. And now with the pen, this is the same method of put a little bit in C, put a little bit in C. I decided to add it to the darkest part of the face first, the eyes, the nose, some parts of this ear, and then I decided to use it to draw in all the different earrings. So here I'm actually just debating to put a little bit up there, to put a little bit too much, or is it too little? It's an experiment. And then I thought, let's just keep going with this fountain pen to create the necklace textures. This seems effective. Oh yeah, and I forgot the nostril. That needs darkening. That looks better. Okay, now towards the finishing touches, I decided to mix a bright turquoise, quite saturated, quite intense, and I'm going to put this in the background around the head. And when you do this, once again the top of the head will just pop out a bit more. That's looking pretty good. And then decided to go a little bit darker again to add value to some of the darker area of her face. It seems a little bit too smooth. So here I go. Basically, I'm tracing all the same areas where the values or the pencil shadow shapes was. So you can see the two approaches that I did. They're quite different, but using basically very much the same, sort of the same techniques. I hope you enjoy this and use it to practice. And yeah, I see you in the next video.